Are you unique? Now, this is a question that comes up a lot, especially with people who are thinking about whether or not they should make videos, whether or not they have a personal brand. Am I different? Is something about me inherently unique, interesting, and engaging? Well, in this video, I'm going to answer that for you definitively and give you the tools to really assess that for yourself. And if we're just meeting, hi, I'm Goodrich. I'm a creative strategist and content creator on YouTube. I have a podcast and I'm on TikTok all the time. And I get asked this question a lot because so many of us have this inherent fear about who we are and whether or not that's good enough and what we could potentially bring to the table. In this video, I'm going to shake you out of that and teach you a framework that I created to help you really uncover what that uniqueness is that you bring to everything it is that you do. And really quickly, if this video resonates with you, will you just do me the favor of liking it and maybe leaving a comment? It really supports my channel and, just reminds me that it's not just me alone in my room. I want to introduce you to a framework that I made up called your cultural constellation. In the last few months, I've been teaching this framework in various workshops and people have just been like mind blown because we live in societies and cultures that teach us to lean away from our individuality and lean away from these three ingredients that go into your cultural constellation. Number one, your identity. This is a combination of things like your ethnicity, your cultural background, your gender and sexuality, your profession, your ability and neurodiversity. When you say, I am, these are the identities that you hold. Now, the problem is that in our societies, the way power is maintained and consolidated is keeping it in the hands of the non-identity. This is the white cis hetero dude bro with money. That power is partly maintained by making us feel like if we have any other identity, that we are somehow less than. Learning to uncover the magic of who you are means that you can show up and lend that identity to all the things that you do. For example, I'm gay, I'm mixed black, and I'm neurodivergent, which means that I see the world through those lenses. It allows me to connect with people. It allows me to arrive at ideas in a different way than somebody else. And it takes some work to move away from shame around your identities to a place of pride, but we all have that capacity, despite the cultural pressure that we may face. Number two are experiences. These are things like family makeup, obstacles, trauma, expertise, and education and research. These are I have done, I have lived through types of statements. Now, we're taught to not value these, especially things like trauma. And this is not at all to minimize the severity of whatever experiences that we're facing that might be particularly rough. However, those traumas, those experiences, that family dynamic become embedded in the fabric of the way that we operate. It tells us what words mean. It tells us what situations feel like. They help form our map of the world. For example, when I was 5, I was in Bhutan, and it was myself and a group of other girls that were in the Corps with me. Now, there was something about me, the way I took to choreography, or the way that I was just totally willing to make a fool out of myself in order to do whatever it was and have that energy, that made it so I was more often than not asked to be in front. Now, you can imagine for the rest of the girls in that situation, they felt envious and informed the way that they treated me. That meant that more often than not, even though I was smiling and in front, I felt ostracized and excluded from the group that I was supposed to be closest to. And because my little 5-year-old brain had to make sense of that, the story that I told myself, which by the way, it took me many years to uncover, so this was a subconscious story that I was just rocking with this whole time, was that if you are too big, too bold, too beautiful, too in front, too loud, too much, no one will love you and you will be alone. And because as a little kid I needed connection, I navigated through the world by making myself smaller. That was the only way for me to feel like I was safe and I would be connected to others. Now, going through that experience gives me a superpower. I can walk into a room and immediately see the person who feels like an outsider, the person who's on the fringe of the conversation, the person who hasn't really had the opportunity to speak and isn't feeling valued. I have these spidey senses because of my lived experiences. And you do too. It's just a matter of uncovering them and really taking stock and thinking about the ways that you are bringing that knowledge and expertise to what it is that you do. The final ingredient is values. Your passions, beliefs, judgments, experiences, politics, and priorities. When you say things like, I believe, you are revealing your values. Our values are a key part of informing the way we show up in the world. As an example, you might have had a car salesperson at some point that approaches you and you have a really lovely conversation and you get that they really want to understand where you're coming from and want to find the best match for you. Versus somebody in the exact same role, and what you get from the conversation is they don't care about you, they're just trying to make that sale. What you can understand is one person's values might be about connection above sales. The other person, it might be about performance above connection. Now, there's no judgment in terms of where our values lie, generally speaking, but really leaning into and honoring what those values are can really help you stand out in your uniqueness. When you add these three together, that's when you start to understand your cultural constellation. And there might be a bazillion other people who share some of these aspects, but when you weave all of it together, you are inherently unique. And by uncovering all of these aspects of your cultural constellation, it helps you lean into them and then show up in the world in a way that's more valuable in whatever you do. As an example, when I was working as a photographer for a long time, I didn't infuse any of what I did with my cultural constellation. Now, it was running in the background, but I didn't lead with it and I definitely didn't lean into it. So I was interchangeable with other people. Once I really started to focus in on my identity, my experiences, and my values, I started to hone my focus and really speak up with clarity about what I particularly bring to this job. And that's when clients really started to pay attention. I started booking more jobs, and those jobs were really sat perfectly in my creative sweet spot, which that is a topic for a whole nother video. So if that sounds interesting, let me know in the comments. The problem is we are socialized to lean away from everything that makes us unique, to not even honor it, understand it, and to try to make ourselves seem bland, basic, boring, to try to appeal to everyone. The magic is when you lean into your cultural constellation and show up in a very specific way about who you are and what you bring to the table. That's when you really start to become magnetic. And whether you're a nurse, a photographer, an accountant, or a creator on platforms like YouTube, having that clarity translates to confidence. Understanding and owning the fullness of who you are attracts people to you like a magnet. That's all. You made it to the end of this video, and I love you. Might I suggest this playlist right here on how to look and feel better on video? Because I firmly believe that everybody can use the power of video to be able to create a powerful context for who they are and what they do that can help them reach their goals. Bye.